What's going on, everybody? I'm back with a brand new video for my Omi homies. In today's video, I will be talking about crypto regulation and what it might mean for the Omi token. So stick around, there's a lot to talk about. If you like the content, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? So this is a topic that I've been thinking about for a long time. I am super bullish on crypto for the next decade. I think that it's going to vastly outperform the stock market. I think that it is a brand new asset class that was created during my lifetime that will continue to make people millionaires. But one of the risks that I see involved in this space is regulation. This asset class is so new that there is very little clarity on regulation. And now, over the last few months, we've been seeing more and more news about regulation. It started with Ripple, and now we got Gary Gensler talking more and more about his desire to regulate the crypto space. So I think about how that might affect the Omi token moving forward. Keep in mind that I have no background in finance. These are just my thoughts based on my research and the information that I've gathered over the last few months. But I think it's important to talk about and important to consider the systemic risks that exist for our investments. So back in 2020, under the previous administration, the SEC filed a lawsuit against Ripple. In the lawsuit, they stated that XRP was an unregistered security. This is because they say Ripple raised capital to finance the company's business through an initial coin offering. So they sold their coins to raise money for their business. That issuers seeking the benefits of a public offering, including access to retail investors, broad distribution, and a secondary trading market, must comply with the federal securities laws that require registrations of offerings unless an exemption from registration applies. So basically, the SEC is arguing that because there was an initial coin offering, Ripple falls under the classification of a security and not a commodity. This is an important distinction because the SEC regulates securities. They do not regulate commodities. Commodities have much less regulation. So the main question that needs to be answered is crypto a commodity or a security? And to do that, we need to first consider what is a security. A security is broadly defined as a financial instrument that has value and can be traded. In everyday usage, it's a word that encompasses stocks, bonds, ETFs, as well as other investments. Securities in the United States fall under three broad categories. Equity securities usually refers to stocks or shares of a company. Debt securities involves borrowed money, right, that has interest rates and a maturity date. And then there are derivatives, which are a little more complicated, but think of that as options trading. All right, then we need to ask ourselves, what is a commodity? And commodities are raw materials that are used as inputs in the production of other goods or services. So you can invest in commodities, and popular commodities that are traded include energy products like oil and natural gas, precious metals like gold and silver, as well as food and agricultural goods like coffee, wheat, cotton, and sugar. So where does crypto fall and where does Omi fall? Is Omi a security or is it a commodity? It's important to note that the SEC has already come out and said that Bitcoin and Ethereum are commodities. They are not securities. They do not fall under the jurisdiction of the SEC. Before we start exploring how Omi might be classified, I want to go back to last week's Women of VEVE interview with Dan Crothers. One of the women on the panel asked Dan specifically about regulation and how it might affect OMI. Let's hear what Dan had to say.
Referring back to the crypto aspect and the OMI token, how is regulation going to affect OMI?
Very open-ended question. I'm not too sure. I mean, I guess, for us, we are 100% a utility token. And, right now that falls within, all of the various regulations. As we move forward, opening up the sort of crypto oriented features, there will be more certifications, more, licenses that we need to acquire, which is all on our roadmap. But the key thing right now is really to make sure that, with OMI, you can do stuff with it. Like I say, you can stake, or there's other cool features which we'll announce hopefully this coming week that you can do with OMI.
All right, so I had two main takeaways from Dan's response. And the first one was that he doesn't know how regulation will affect OMI. There's still a lack of clarity. All right, but his second point, and the one that he really harped on, was the idea that it's important for OMI to have utility. And he goes on to talk about staking OMI, about buying land with OMI, and about being able to do different things with OMI and giving it utility. And the reason why he talks about that is because if OMI has utility, then it could be classified as a commodity and not a security. So there's something called the Howie Test that's used to determine whether assets are securities or commodities, and it's a series of questions. Let's take a look. So the Howie Test is what's used to determine what qualifies as an investment contract and therefore what would be subject to U.S. securities laws. An investment contract exists if there is an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others. That's a key point. Certain cryptocurrencies and initial coin offerings may be found to meet the definition of an investment contract under the Howie Test. So the Supreme Court established 4 criteria to determine whether an investment contract exists. And they are: 1, that there is an investment of money; 2, that this is in a common enterprise; 3, that it is with the expectation of profit; 4, that it is to be derived from the efforts of others. Now let's take a look at the second criteria, in a common enterprise. And this is where things get tricky. Because unlike securities, commodities don't generate a return from a common enterprise. Instead, they're goods or property that get grown or mined where their value depends on the demand and supply of the market. So this is why Dan, in his response, focuses so much on the importance for creating utility for the OMI token. Because although OMI is not mined or grown naturally, it was created by people, it has utility, and its value is dependent on the supply and demand of that utility, right? So the more demand there is for the land in the VEVE-verse, the more demand there will be for the OMI token. And in that regard, OMI is acting as a commodity. It has a use case. It has utility. You can use it. It's not like owning a share in a company, right? That's a common enterprise, and the company makes money and you make money. You own coins that have a use case, and as the demand for those coins increases, the value of those coins increases. That's the case to be made for the OMI token as a commodity and not a security, but it's not that simple. Let's take a look at the last 2 aspects of the Howie test. Number 3 says that there is an expectation of profit, which there is with the OMI token. You buy it with the expectation of profit. Number 4 is that it is to be derived from the efforts of others. Under the 4th part of the Howie test, I think that a case could be made for OMI to be identified as a security. That's because its value is driven by the efforts of others, meaning the people on the VEVE team, Dan Crothers and David Yu. All right, they are working to give it utility and working to increase the value of the token, unlike something like Ethereum, which is a decentralized network. All right, Bitcoin is completely decentralized. So this is part of the reason why those two coins are not considered securities. So this is why crypto assets are so complicated, because if you use the Howie test and the traits of the cryptocurrency are a utility token like Omi is aiming to be, then it should be classified as a commodity. However, the issue lies in how a crypto asset project starts. For instance, if a crypto asset comes into existence via an initial coin offering or a token-generated event where investors are offered a token in exchange for money upfront for a project that doesn't yet exist, and they expect to make a return, then things are different. In theory, anything like this will most likely be classified as a security. And so this is why I believe that Dan is unsure of how to answer that question, right? How will regulation affect Omi? And he says, I don't know. And that's because while the Omi token does have utility, it came into existence through an initial coin offering, and it does mostly meet the criteria of the Howie test, even though there is a lot of gray area. But it doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what you think. What matters is what the SEC thinks. And what does Gary Gensler think? He's been on record as saying that any project that had an initial coin offering should be classified as a security. Let's hear some of his thoughts.
Those tokens being offered, many of them are offered and sold as security. My predecessor, SEC Chairman Jay Clayton, I think said it well in 2018 in congressional testimony. He said to the extent that digital assets like, and I think he named Bitcoin, but he said to the extent that digital assets like initial coin offerings or ICOs or securities, and then he goes, and I believe every ICO I have seen is a security, we have jurisdiction. Federal securities laws apply. I find myself agreeing with my predecessor, Chair Clayton.
All right, so now let's say that Gary Gensler has his way, and all of these crypto projects that had initial coin offerings like Omi, in spite of its utility, that it is a security. What does that mean for the Omi token? First and foremost, it means that it is an unregistered security, like Ripple, right? Ripple is right now being sued because the SEC alleges that it's an unregistered security. Now, can the SEC or will they come out and sue or fine all of these projects that are right now securities without even knowing it? I don't think that's likely to happen. I think that they will be grandfathered in due to the fact that there's been a lack of clarity, and this is a brand new asset class. I don't think that would be fair, and I think that that would cause a lot of pushback on the SEC. So I don't think that all of these projects like Omi would get fined. I don't think that they would get sued, but I do think that they would be forced to register as securities and be under more scrutiny. All right, now, is that a big deal? Not if they follow all of the regulations and if they are transparent and do things the right way, which I believe the VEVE team, does. I think that they are a responsible team and that they would follow any regulation set forth. I think that the main issue would be that most of the exchanges are not registered to sell securities, especially all the small ones. Unlike Coinbase that has a license to sell securities, most small crypto exchanges are not licensed, all right? They don't have the proper paperwork in place. They haven't been vetted, and so they would be at risk. That would cause a lot of volatility in the market, because then they would be forced to delist all of these projects that they're no longer licensed to list. That would give people way less access to especially the small coins like Omi. They'd be very difficult to get unless a major exchange like Coinbase decided to list them. Now, what I think would happen is that the industry would adapt and more crypto exchanges would rise up and get the proper licensing. And in time, things would work out. But I do think that there would be short-term volatility, and it would cause a lot of FUD. So my final thoughts are that I do think that coins like Omi would take a short-term hit if regulation were to say that they are securities and not commodities. But I think that in time, everything will work out because the industry will adapt, because that's what industries do. Long term, I think that regulation in the space will be good because it will provide clarity and it will offer investors protection. Unless the SEC, of course, oversteps and goes too far, then I think we could have some issues. But I think that Gary Gensler understands how innovative the crypto space is and how important it is to the future of the economy. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. As always, if you like the content, make sure you smash the like button on your way out and subscribe to the channel. I hope you all have a great weekend and stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe. I will see you in the next video.